Joining us is a gentleman who is no stranger to the Observer. Let me say a special good evening to Tutor President Mr. Martin Lumpkin. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mikey.
Thank you
Good
so
evening
much
to
for
you
taking.
listeners.
Yep. Mr. Lumpkin, we're about a week and a half away from the start of the 2024-2025 school term. How are we looking? How are things shaping up?
Just as in the past, probably even more unsure than in the past. We had a media conference by the Ministry of Education and the Honorable Minister, which to us was a public relations gimmick. They said nothing that can comfort our members. We want to say though, we are happy for the fact that parents will be given some form of assistance through the grant, as small as it is. But we are glad for that. We are also glad for the migrant children who were admitted, roughly I think 23 of them. And in that instance, we monitor that situation. But we are not satisfied with the preparations for reopening of schools as it relates to infrastructure and as well the filling of vacancies. Ministry of Education has taken a short-term approach because you would have heard of the fiasco with the interviews for T1s for government primary schools.
Yeah.
That there was a leak. The Ministry of Education has admitted that, and the Teaching Service Commission has taken back that authority given to the ministry to conduct those interviews, and the interviews would have begun this month and will go through into September. And so the Ministry of Education has taken an approach to have short-term contracts for persons who were on the Board of Merit list. So those persons who were interviewed by the Teaching Service Commission, and those persons would have been for denominational school for the most part, and which the denominational boards have not approved for their schools. So they have the criteria, and they will be given short-term contracts, at least for the first term, until Service Commission can finish their process.
Yeah.
And produce their order of merit list.
But let me ask you, why does it come down to the wire when it comes to the opening of the school term, that these issues which needs to be addressed earlier on, and that way there could be a smooth opening as far as the school term goes? Why does it always come down to the wire? I mean, what about school repairs? I know that you did send out some correspondence stating that many of the schools, apparently repairs were not done over this July-August break.
Yes, and we often wonder, we are tutor, often wonder why this happens, because there's a set period, July, August vacation. So the Ministry of Education is well aware that there are 2 months in which they can do major repairs, emergency repairs done during the term, but major repairs. And there are a number of schools that require major repairs. The ministry did admit that over 50% of all primary schools in Trinidad and Tobago have outlived their life of over 50 years. I think 56% they had said, or 39% of secondary schools. So the Honorable Minister did admit a few months ago that we have aging schools, and they are well aware of schools that are requiring emergency and extensive works, because principals have been utilizing the protocols. So there's the Schools Infrastructural Management System, what we call SIMS, which all principals would indicate through the SIMS, sending a request for repairs, and a ticket is generated, and that is in the Ministry of Education. The ministry has the records of all of that and would know what schools require what infrastructural work. The ministry has always been crying about funding and the release of funding, and we fully understand the situation. But we have said to the ministry and said to the public that education and the proper functioning education system is so important to the national development of Trinidad and Tobago that the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago can draw down on the Heritage and Stabilization Fund in order to bring schools up to a certain standard, minimum standard, so that there can be effective teaching and learning.
Yeah, and again, always bringing it down to the wire with this issue. This has
Yes.
always been an issue as well when it comes to the registration of the new students. If you can clear this up once and for all, that fee or whatever monies that are asked, is that a school policy or is that a ministry policy?
For registration,
Yeah, many people talk about that. They go to registration, the day of orientation, and they're asked to pay some sort of fee. But tell us, is that the school's policy or is that the ministry's policy?
the Ministry of Education has made it quite clear that no public schools, whether government or government assisted, is supposed to charge any registration fees to any parent or student, whether it be at the primary or secondary level. And we quite agree with that because education is supposed to be quote unquote free and no one should have to pay to register. However, there are some incidental, I wouldn't say fees, expenditure that the school incurs when there's registration. So, for example, in photocopying school rules and so forth and so on, persons are asked to purchase the report books, as well as some schools produce copybooks which are unique to their particular school, and persons are asked to pay for that. And then the PTA has a fee which goes towards the work of the PTA, because you can well imagine PTAs are not funded. However, what we are saying is that if the Ministry of Education wants to enforce those policies, we don't have any problems with that. But the Ministry of Education should also fully fund these public schools such that they are not in need or wanting for funding. And we believe if the Ministry of Education funds schools adequately, there will not be any need to ask for these, and it's not registration fees, it's fees that are incurred due to the registration, and all those stationery and so forth. So if the ministry is enforcing that, then they need to ensure that they fund the schools so that the schools can cover these incidents, of course.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that in the sense that because it simply doesn't add up. I mean, here it is that you're not getting the funding. The principals of these schools want to ensure that the working staff is comfortable in the environment. There are no repairs basically being done. Simple things like getting a fan, getting a paint job done and what have you. They are hoping that they can raise money and do this, but because they're not getting the funding, and I think people need to understand there are two things in your life that is going to cost money, and that is healthcare and education. And for some reason in this country, we seem not to want to put that dollar value to it, but we have to. I mean, we're talking about making an investment in a human index, which is our students, that at the end of the day, they can go out there and be globally competitive. Why is this not connecting with the ministry and those in authority?
Your guess is as good as mine. We have to me competent persons within the Ministry of Education who are quite capable of running the ministry efficiently and effectively. Sometimes we have the policies of the government, and as we are aware, governments are made up of political beings, and sometimes political expediency as well as the political parties' agenda takes over, whereby it sometimes does not align with what is best for, and especially in education. Sometimes we don't see that alignment. And, one of the things is that we have spending taking place on education. We supposedly have the largest cut of the budget, yet still we are faced with these challenges within the Ministry of Education for funding. And without actually, knowing what is taking place in the background, the average person would question what is taking place, because schools are not getting the adequate funding. There are always schools with infrastructural issues. There are lack of funding in other areas as well too. You may say recurrent expenditure in terms of emoluments might be a high amount, but yet still all vacancies are not filled. So, Mikey, you would know that when they present their budget to the Ministry of Finance, they will, for emoluments, they will give an amount as if all vacancies are filled. So suppose, I'm just using an arbitrary number, suppose it's 100 million for all vacancies to be filled. They will present that by 12, and that's the budget for emoluments. However, we well know that 100 million is not spent every month on emoluments because there are vacancies. And we sometimes wonder if it's a deliberate attempt by the Ministry of Education not to fill these vacancies so that they can utilize the monies for that particular line item in other areas. That's the suspicion we have. We have no proof on that though.
And let me ask you, and I want you to clear this up because I know people would take away the wrong perception about things. Now, your body tutor does not have a problem with migrant children in the school. I mean, you agree with the policy by UNESCO that every child deserves to have an education. But your issue is that you're in the dark that these children were also going to be placed in government primary schools along with denominational schools. Why is it that this was not made clear to you at tutor?
So I will say this. The Catholic Education Board of Management, which is the body that has been pushing for migrant children in their schools, in the public schools, public assisted schools, because the Roman Catholic Church has a policy when it comes to migrants and having human rights and so on. So yes, we don't have an issue with the fundamental principle of it, and we are signatories to the United Nations Rights of the Child, which one of it is for schooling for all children. So the Ministry of Education was not really clear with us as to where these children will be placed. We were under the impression it was supposed to be the Roman Catholic schools in the first instance. We heard that another denominational board came on board. I can't confirm which one, but we were in contact with the Catholic board through Ms. Mongo. And so she was giving us the feedback in terms of training. They were seeking funding to assist as well. She gave the assurance that the schools that were targeted were schools that were not going to be overcrowded. It were schools that had the capacity for both local and the migrant children, because that was one of our concerns, that our citizens should not be sidelined because of bringing in a migrant child. Our children should be, on the first instance, taken in. And Mrs. Mongo did assure us that they met with the principals of schools that had the spaces, and those were the schools that were going to be utilized. However, at the news conference on Monday, we were shocked to hear that there are some government schools, and we never got that feedback from our membership either. So we are not even certain as to the level of training that took place at these government schools. And the same program and the same body that the CEO had announced was the body that was doing the training for the Catholic board. So we were not told that there were government primary school teachers who were included on that training.
And you must ask yourself, I mean, you've been the president of Tutor for how long? I mean, is it what, a year, 2 years?
2 years, roughly, almost 2 years. November will be 2 years.
Right, November will be 2 years, and coming in, of course, you must have had some expectations, and one of that, of course, would be that there be an open channel of communication between your body and that of the ministry. Why has that been, so complicated, and why? What exactly is that causing such a blockage that you can't seem to get that communication right?
We don't know. It's not a new phenomenon. My predecessor would have faced some challenges in meeting with the Ministry of Education. We are supposed to have monthly statutory meetings with the permanent secretary. When we did come into office in 2022, shortly after, we were able to get regular meetings, not as regular as we would have liked, but it was an improvement. And then came a change in permanent secretaries, and the meetings were not as frequent. We did have to present ourselves to the ministry unannounced a couple of occasions in order to meet the PS, and I must say she did meet with us, and we did have a initial meeting. I have to say as well too that the deputy permanent secretary has been quite open to and receptive to working with Tutor, which we welcome, because we have always said to the Ministry of Education, to the politicians, to the nation, Tutor is not an obstructionist. Tutor is there to enhance the teaching learning process as well as the education system. Our constitution speaks about working towards the cause of education, and that's what we are there to do, to improve the education system. But we will not sit idly by and allow our members' rights to be trampled upon. And sometimes the ministry doesn't understand that we have to defend them, jealously guard their rights. And sometimes they feel we are, making trouble or arousing.
No.
But we have proven to the ministry that apart from bringing up these issues, we have also given solutions that are viable as well too.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I hope people understand that what's at stake here is the students. Young people who are at stake at all this. And recently, you and your members were outside the Sinclair office of the CPO. Tell us about that. That was quite recently when I believe it was about the health course situation.
Yeah, so part of the benefits of our members, well, the entire teaching service and public service, is the UNIMED Group Health Plan. So it is a mandatory plan for all teachers, all educators in the teaching service. And it is an employee managed plan towards the employee. And by and large, the plan has worked well. There were a couple of occasions when the plan ran into a deficit, and the government would have taken the decision to inject funds into it in order to bring it back up to where it should be. We are in that situation right now. The plan is in a deficit over roughly over 35 million in deficit. And what happens? Because it's a contributory plan, it's not a insurance-led plan. Whatever is collected is used to pay out claims. And so when what is collected from both the employer and employee is put towards the claims, it's not matching the amount of claims that are being done by the members or the insured persons. And so that has brought about the deficit. And what that has done is made the processing and payment time even longer. What should be roughly 4 weeks has now gone to 13 months. So we are in August. So persons who would have filed 13 months prior to that, which is in 2023, are now getting their monies from the plan. And that has worked negatively for a number of our members because some of them have to depend on their what they get back from the plan in order to continue their treatment.
Yeah.
And what people are and we are saying as well is that the ministry and the government have no objection, or they will take out those dues without any sort of break in that, but yet still people are not getting what they are paying for, are not getting it in a timely manner.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder where's the incentive, where's the motivation to go into the teaching field when in fact there's so many problems. I mean, when you look at the space, the environment, the repairs, the infrastructure, the problems with that, then you have to deal with perhaps the students where you're still asking for some connection with the parents to understand their role and responsibility. Then you have to look at the fact that when it comes to payment and benefits, that is somewhat like pulling teeth. I mean, so how do you keep this entire thing together? I mean, because we keep hearing about this, it's such a recurring factor. And at the end of the day, as I said, the students are the ones who really and truly have to, unfortunately suffer all of this. How do you keep it together?
Well, we say through the grace of God, that's one. But through the hard work of our members, we have been hearing constantly their cry, and we try not to be emotional about it, but it's difficult. It's difficult to not be emotional because these are people who are giving literally blood, sweat, and tears for the nation. They are some of the most patriotic people in the nation because they're molding the minds of our future leaders. I'm not saying that we don't have a few bad eggs among the teaching service, and I mean that's something that we have to work on. However, the majority of our educators they are constantly working beyond the call of duty, yet still they do not see any sort of appreciation from the employer. They see the joy in the faces of the children, especially when you can get a child to move from point A to point B and you see that joy. But when you have other factors bearing down on you, it is difficult. And we hear the cry of our members. It is so. Can you just permit me, Mikey? Yesterday we were invited by the staff rep and the principal of Mount Hope Secondary School, and the principal who has been there since 2018, who has been keeping that school together, and this is reflective of a number of our principals who are keeping the school together under the conditions by which they are facing at Mount Hope Secondary. That was one of the schools that was initially rebuilt in about 2007 when they shifted from junior set 3 years to 5 years. And the building next to where they are right now has been abandoned since maybe more than 10 years ago. But what they are facing at the present structure is really daunting. And the principal was telling us that in order to keep school running, sometimes she would be climbing up on tables to change bulbs and so on. And, that was so depressing for us to know that. And every year they are supposed to be on the list of repairs, for critical repairs, because they have electrical. That school is nearly 50 years old, built in 1970s, early 1970s. And the official from the Ministry of Education was telling us that she would submit the names, the problems of the schools when she got the SIMs and so on, and recommend for emergency repairs. And when it goes higher up, they are rejecting it. So persons who have no idea of what the school is facing, persons who up in there and we say air condition officers making decisions of deferring deferring repairs because they feel that they don't have the money for it, or that there are other schools that are more in dire need of it. And yet still, you know what is happening with Mount Hope Secondary? Their students are excelling. They're doing such, great passes. I haven't seen their CSEC results as yet, but they are anticipating that the passes are going to be,
Well, that's good.
improving. And it is servicing a community in Mount Hope there that is in need of it. The students and the parents, they look forward to education to have their children have a brighter future. But when you have all these odds against you, at some point in time, you're going to break down. And that is slowly happening to the staff and the principal there.
Yeah.
And this is what we are facing as the representatives. And so sometimes when we come across as harsh, it's because we are impacted by our members. It's hard. It's hard to
I can
avoid
only
it.
imagine. I can only imagine. But I do wish you and your entire team the best on the school term, 2025 school term. We'll have you back on, throughout
Sure.
that term and see what's happening. But, best of luck to you and your entire team, and
Thank you
keep up the
very
good
much.
work. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
And you keep up the good work too, Mikey.
Thank you so
very
much.